What up?
Hey.
What's up, boys?
Hey. Oh no.
Oh God.
We're off to a rough start.
I dropped.
Damn it, Cody.
Listen, I'll get there one day. I've got a new setup.
I told you should have went to the fucking RV.
I don't have keys for the RV.
I don't care. That's not an excuse.
I'm trying.
Calista climbed through the damn windows. You can do the same damn thing.
That's true. I think I'm a little too fat for that.
Real quick, where are you at right now?
I guess I gotta show you.
What a beautiful sight.
Dude, hey, it's Bristol, baby. It's Bristol, baby. Country Thunder this weekend. Shout out Morgan Wallen, a fellow Tennessee boy, and Hardy. They're performing tomorrow. Jason Aldean's performing tonight. I don't really care about him too much because he cheated on his wife.
Jeez.
What it is.
Yeah, we're brought to you by 69mega.com. Don't forget to support. As always, this is the LTC from the East Tennessee. My name is JKL.
I'm Cody, your host with the most. Also your Uber driver this evening.
I'm Dalton Good, aka Dalton Rowdy Bush.
Sup, Mom?
What up, Debbie?
Hey.
We got Junior, we got Carly. Who else we got? What's Papa's Sarah? Hey Ryan, what's good? Does my audio sound fine?
It's all right.
Dude, yeah. I'll take it. Can't really complain. Hey, what are we here for?
Well, we finally lined up another interview. It's been a little bit since we did. And by we, I mean Cody. But Cody lined up the interview. We finally got somebody on. I'm pretty excited about it. Should we just introduce him?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll add him in.
All right. Stephen Mallozzi. Bring him in.
Hello.
What up, man?
Hey.
Welcome to the cult.
And then
Well, I'm honored to be a member of the cult, except there's a problem with that. It's the left turn cult, except I've only ever done one race in NASCAR, and I turned right as well. Matter of fact, I think I turned right more than I did left. So technically, I'm in a both turn gang right now, you know?
So
Both turn gang?
every time we go to a road course, we always name the episode left and right turn cult. So
Yeah.
like by default, you're in the cult still. So you're fine.
I'm honored. I'm honored to be a member of the cult.
Just like every cult, there's some leadway. We can get on some rules, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, man, what's up? How's life?
Well, right now, I just finished up my midterm week at college. I go to the University of Virginia, which is in Charlottesville. The reason why a lot of people know our town is because of the, protests that happened here we'll call them protests. It was more of riots that happened here in 2017. It's a great town. I'm here in my last semester, graduating as an economics major in December. And then after that, I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. So right now, life's pretty good. I'm trying to find a bunch of money to go racing, but that's a tough business, I think, as we know, to find money to go stock car racing in today's climate that we're in.
So first and foremost, I want to say go Hokies. Sorry to
Go Balls.
Go Hokies. Hokie ho. I don't have. I mean, you're gonna win the Commonwealth Bowl, so don't feel bad about that. That's yours already. I would deliver that trophy to you, personally, if I could. But
you should. I expect you to come down. I'll actually come down to you, and I'll pick up the trophy.
That works.
From you, if you would like, because we're gonna just show you guys this year. Yeah. Also, if you didn't know, big Philadelphia Eagles guy. Love the birds. Fly Eagles fly. So we agree, Cody, on some sports opinions, apparently, but strongly disagree on others, as it seems.
That's okay. As long as you're an Eagles guy, I'll respect you. So
fair enough. I prioritize my love of the Eagles over my love of the University of Virginia football program, anyways. So
fair.
What can I say?
Are you into baseball?
Yes. big Phillies guy. So that's been a tough 10 years for me. I'm into all major sports. Anything like somebody wants to marry you, Jacob.
Yeah, I know, man. That's happened a lot over the weekend.
Yeah, that's a lot to handle while we're just talking about baseball. I love football, baseball, basketball, hockey, NASCAR. Those are pretty much all the sports I'm into. So, what'd you say?
Hockey. Who's your team?
Hockey, Flyers. And if you ask me baseball, it's going to be the Sixers. You don't even have to.
So everything Philadelphia.
Yes. I am. My blood is cheese whiz for all the cheesesteaks I've eaten, and I spend most of my days watching Philadelphia sports highlights clips on YouTube.
Are you the guy? Are you one of the Philly guys that laughs at the Bill Burr Philly rant, or are you one of the guys that gets mad at the Bill Burr Philly rant?
I'm one of the guys that laughs at it. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Philly is it's a place, it's one of those you go to, and you're God, I hate you already, Ryan. It's one of those places where you go and you're like, okay, it's a cool city historically, but right now we're on a downswing, and like there's a lot of crime. There's a lot of homelessness. It's not the great city it used to be. So everybody kind of hangs their hat on our sports programs. And it makes us super passionate about them. And more so than other cities. Like our entire tide flows with our sports programs. If our sports are bad, I mean, it's a pretty friggin' nasty place to be. Like, we beat the shit out of Vikings fans after we beat them 38-7. Like, we won the game, and we were going to the Super Bowl.
What about Super Bowl when they Crisco'd all the poles?
Yeah, because we climbed them and tried to destroy light poles in our own city.
Do you know about the Santa Claus that got pelted with snowballs?
Okay, wait a second. Hold on. This is where I draw the line here. Is the Santa Claus thing. Everybody brings this up, and it's like, Philly is such a shithole. They threw snowballs at Santa Claus. Myth and fact here. Myth or fact, yes, we did indeed pelt a man dressed as Santa Claus with snowballs. Myth, however, is that he was an innocent, ho-ho-ho loving, cheer-spreading man. He was screaming belligerent, flagrant things at children. And in response, a fan a few rows behind him threw a snowball. And then it kind of spiraled out of control from there. But the story that got portrayed is that, okay, it was basically Philly fans who were in a bad place throwing snowballs at a guy who was making that place worse. It's like, okay, Philly fans just hate everybody and want Christmas to die. So that's
hey, don't feel bad. We threw mustard bottles last year.
Yeah, was disrespectful to Lane Kiffin.
And golf balls too.
I don't know the player specifically, but there was a Dallas Cowboy whose career ended at the link, and Philly fans lost their shit and like just cheered for him as he was like carted off.
That has probably happened. And listen. I would say I'm a more rational Philly fan. I don't think I would do that. But I will say when you're in the link, sometimes the energy's overpowering, man. These
Have you climbed a light pole? That is my question.
Have I climbed a light pole? No, I did do pretty voracious burnouts though when we won the Super Bowl. It was the first week I had my new car. And my first ever car was a 2009 Dodge Challenger SRT8. So I love that. I mean, it was a fun car. It was the first year they made the SRT8s for the Challengers, and I loved it. And I went out and I was pretty elated that we had just won the goddamn Super Bowl. Like I thought, I'm gonna die in 27 years as a 39-year-old man or whatever the hell I'd be in 17 years from that point. Not at an old age because, I'm an adrenaline junkie, douchebag kind of guy who's going to do some stupid shit that gets me killed. And I'm never going to see an Eagles Super Bowl. So when we won the Super Bowl, I was kind of like, this is some good shit right here. We are like, yeah, like let's go Birds, I've been a season ticket holder, or my family has been. They're my dad's tickets. And my dad actually works for Aramark, which is the company that does the food at all the stadiums and all this stuff. So we've got a lot. My mom, up until 2004, was one of the vice presidents of hospitality or ticketing and sales or something for the Eagles, Phillies, Sixers, and Flyers. Oh. So we've got it deep in, kind of rooted in our blood, even though my mom technically grew up a Giants fan. Kind of don't talk about it in our family that my mom grew up a Giants fan, but it did happen. So like I'm deep rooted in Philly sports. It's like, unfortunately, a defining part of my personality. So
let me ask you this. So of all the NFC East rivals, give me like the teams you hate the worst to least.
Cowboys.
Okay.
Giants.
All right.
50 feet of shit. Commanders.
I think that's true because like
I can't hate the Commanders. They're just such a joke of an organization. Like, who cares? Washington! Like, they were named the fucking football team for 3 years. Like, I don't really care.
And there was like literal shit like falling on their stands.
Funny story. I actually was at the game this past week.
No.
And I went and my seats were literally, I was second row, and my seats were the two seats next to the railing that fell last year on Jalen Hurts.
Oh my God.
So yeah, they were, I mean, like, not only is their owner's a piece of shit, their stadium is, I've probably been to 36 sports stadiums at this point in my life. The worst one, far none, and the only one in the country I think competes with it is probably the Coliseum. The Coliseum is terrible in Oakland. I've never been, but from what I've heard, it's probably pretty close. But that stadium in Washington is so bad. I mean, it's just really not a fun place to be. And even getting in and out, it'll take you 2.5 hours to get out of the stadium after the game is over. Like it's not a good time. It is really, I watched basically all the way up through stage 1.5 probably of the Texas race, which was a long freaking race because everybody wrecked.
Yeah.
And I think we still weren't out of the parking lot by the time that had happened. So yeah, not a good time. Not a good time.
That Texas race was pretty painful. That was a pretty painful race.
I gotta be honest with you. I'm pretty shocked. Like,
shocked about what?
About, quite frankly, how it's gotten to this point. I'm not sure very clearly, and we remember Denny Hamlin pleaded with the drivers preseason about like the next gen car and how they had to do something about it now in order to kind of get it fixed before the season started. Let's start with the tires. I mean, we've been running this car for 27, 29, 30 weeks now. I don't know how long, 29 weeks, something like that. I don't get how we haven't developed a tire that just will last. And like, the problem with it for me isn't the tire blowing. The problem for me is the fact that you don't control when it is or isn't going to blow. I mean, like, you look at, there were Hendrick guys who didn't blow a tire at all last week, right? But then Bowman does. And that's strange to me. But you have leaders who go out and lead the race. Truex, for example, leads for 35 laps and blows a tire. Same thing happens to Harvick. Same thing happens to somebody else who was leading the race at some point in the event. But then Reddick goes out and leads for 68 laps at the end of the event and the tires are fine.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how that inconsistency arises. If you develop a tire that everybody knows will not last 35 laps, that is problematic, right? But at least it's consistently problematic, where you don't have crew chiefs playing a guessing game of, okay, am I going to put my driver in jeopardy to stay out front, or am I going to be smart and just bring him down because I know that the tire will only last until this point? That's not what it is. It's, okay, it could go 24 laps into a run. It could not go at all. We could make it to the end of the race, and I don't like that at all.
Well, you said you've raced late models, right?
Yes.
Are you guys running Hoosiers when you usually race some late models? Is that what you're running? Yes. So you've ran Hoosiers and Goodyear. I mean, all right. So the first thing that the Twitterverse does, right, is a tire blows and they immediately go after Goodyear. And I'll admit it, sometimes I'm that guy. I'm like, man, these damn tires, you know. Do you think it's a Goodyear issue?
I don't know. I think, and Joe, for what it's worth, I don't think we ever talked about this. So if you guys don't know who I am, I am basically a guy who really likes NASCAR, who was lucky enough to race some late models, and I did a truck series race this year. That's what I drive, Joe. Yeah, pretty much. I don't think it's a Goodyear issue. I think it's a design issue. I think it has to do with the load in the right rear, because it seems to me it's a lot of right rear tires going down. But I'm not sure fundamentally what that's from. I think there's a lot of moving parts with it. My my bigger concern has to do with the rear end impact. It is really concerning. Bowman's hit was a tap on the wall. This is we're talking about a guy who has broken both of his legs in a USAC crash. Like, he has been through some shit. And now he's saying on the radio that the hardest hit he's ever taken is a hit where he barely backs it into a wall and finishes the race. Like, keeps going. And then we find out a few days later that he has a concussion. I mean, that did not look like Kurt Busch's hit. At first, I was like, okay, that didn't look like a concussion hit. And then if you watch it a few times back, you're like, that's a pretty hefty impact. Maybe that makes sense. But now we're talking about the Bowman hit, and you watch that as many times as you want. It doesn't look like he hit that hard. And
does that concern you as a driver?
Like, yeah. Yeah,
obviously, right.
Somebody asked me, somebody in the industry asked me, because we were talking about this very issue. And I'm like, or they're like, would you drive a cup car? Like, I don't know. I'm pretty scared of those things. I mean, I've heard half the field at some point in the season say that this is the hardest hit they've ever taken. At some point, in some collisions that don't even look as intense as they are. It doesn't seem to be that unsafe in front-facing collisions. Like Cody Ware's hit, holy moly, I thought that was pretty bad. And then Cody Ware comes out, and look, he's racing Talladega this week. Yeah, he's on crutches, but he's okay. That was a hefty impact.
His wreck looked much worse than Kurt Busch's and Bowman's.
Exactly.
From a visual standpoint.
So to me, it's clearly a rear. I mean, I don't think this is a groundbreaking thing to say. Everybody said it pretty much all over. It has to do with the rear end and how stiff it is, and it just sends the impact straight to the driver instead of letting the car absorb it with a crush cell. I think I saw a video of David Rudiman's crash at Phoenix a decade and a half ago in a BK racing car. And he basically backed it into a wall, and the whole back end was gone. But Rudiman was fine because there was so much crush zone in that rear end that the car absorbs the impact. It's concerning to say the least. I mean, if you win a championship this year, this poses my less safety perspective, but more so from a legitimacy perspective standpoint. If you take a step back and look at this year, can we really say that the person who wins this year, people have been blowing it up on NASCAR Twitter. Oh my God, the parity. Like, this is such a parity-driven season. We've got 20 winners. It's great for the sport. I implore you, is it great for the sport? Because are these 20 winners because we've had great racing, or 20 winners because we've lost so many competitors throughout the course of a year due to mechanical failures, crashes, this, that we had blown tires? Like, have we lost a number of competitors because of the way that the car is designed, that we've had just random winners at times?
So you're saying maybe the field is too even.
I'm saying maybe it's a point where it's not even about competitiveness. It's about flat out randomness. I mean,
true. Yeah.
Survive, if you will.
Yeah, you look at certain races and you're like, we've lost 6. Look at Darlington. That was a Truex. That should have been Truex or Busch. And
I don't want to talk about Darlington.
Right. Sorry. Truex would have been a different winner. I know that. I understand that. But there are different points of the year where Truex probably could have won a race and got into some trouble. But like, if Kyle Busch had won, Eric Jones wouldn't be a winner. Like, that's the one I've got off the top. Obviously, if there's not a mistake at Daytona, Austin Dillon never wins a race. Like, Austin Dillon's win is a total fluke. He was running.
I wish Coop was here to hear you say that.
I mean, is Coop an Austin Dillon fan? Or
he is an Austin Dillon fan.
Coop, listen. I'll tell Coop straight up. At some point, you gotta look at the Reddick-Dillon comparison and say, okay, look at what Austin's doing in significantly equal equipment to somebody who's just probably more talented than he is. I mean, it's garbage. It goes back. I think we might have talked about this a little bit when we were pre-show. It all funnels. This is all funneling into one conversation for me, which is the conversation of NASCAR isn't about the most talented drivers anymore. And that's unfortunate to say. I mean, if you look at somebody like Dale Earnhardt, okay, I know that's a really generic example, but that's who I'm going with because it's the most emphatic guy to talk about. Dale Earnhardt's from a poor family, like dirt ass poor. And basically they knew how to work on cars, so they were able to race. And that's how it was for most of NASCAR drivers in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and most part early 80s. Now, as we got into the shift in the early 90s, late 90s, early 2000s kind of area, with the industrialization of NASCAR, as it became like a major broadcast sport, it didn't matter because the cars became so competitive and so luxurious that it's impossible to fund them with just sponsors anymore. There are very few people. I'll tell you, a truck series race for bottom of the barrel equipment, if you're probably going to rent a truck that'll run 31st or 32nd, if you're lucky, it'll cost you 35 or 40 grand.
Holy shit.
Now you multiply that by 23 races, you're talking $1 million for a season in a truck that'll run the last. And this is the truck series, man. If you want to go run KVM equipment, 150 grand a race. I mean, who's got that kind of money? And if you run the analytics of what we're talking about, even if you're John Hunter Nemechek and you're qualifying on pole every race and you're having a championship caliber season again and you're doing great, whatever, the Truck Series averages under 1 million viewers a race. So you're basically spending $1 to get your eyes on maybe 5 or 6 consumers at most. It's $1 for every 6 consumers you're spending. No company in their right mind in today's technological era is going to spend that kind of money for sponsorship. So when the transition happened from, okay, NASCAR is kind of like a southern regional sport to NASCAR is a national powerhouse, at first we were able to cover the cost. Talented drivers covered the cost of racing with sponsorship because there were no other ways to get your product out there. There's no phones, there's no internet, there's no social media. It's the late 80s, early 90s. Okay? You're just basically raw dogging life at this point. So there are dozens of companies lining up to get a piece of the NASCAR pie. You shift over and another decade passes, and now we're entering a new technological age where the cost of racing is still the same, but if not even more. But a lot of the network kind of aspect of it, while NASCAR is still thriving from a ratings perspective, there's other ways to advertise. And we didn't see it right away, but as the 2000s went by, we began to realize, okay, there's no companies lining up to sponsor trucks anymore. And it starts at this bottom level. I think the Cup Series actually has advertising value. And if you understand how the Cup Series model works, there's a lot of companies that sponsor, mostly because they are they're providing services to teams. But I digress. There's nothing in the Truck Series. So you get people who have extremely rich parents or have an executive of a dad at a company that benefits NASCAR to implore, or a NASCAR team to implore in a seat. I mean, we could list all the names of people who are in the Truck Series who probably shouldn't be. But the point is, if you run through the roster of the 100 people who have a full-time ride in NASCAR right now, it is very difficult to find one who didn't start their career pre-2006, who isn't from an extremely wealthy family, or who doesn't have some type of a relation to a racing team like a Cole Custer Stewart-Haas or a Cindric Penske kind of thing. That makes it tough. And I think that it's kind of removed some of the power from the drivers. And I think, circling it back to the safety conversation, we're not even employing the most talented drivers in the country anymore sometimes. So when we're not doing that, do we, like, let's be honest. Let's ask you three. Do you guys really care if Cole Custer leaves the Cup Series? No.
I do.
No,
I do
no.
personally. I think he's a hell of a driver.
I
but
think
It's because you're Ford Kiss ass, Jacob.
I do think he's a hell of a driver.
champion
Do
Wow.
what?
That's
in
But-
Xfinity.
in Xfinity, where he was in the best car in the field by far. I think if you put him back in that store, I mean, I guess he did win an Xfinity race this year, so that's kind of, he did go in a Stewart-Haas car and win. But I think Stewart-Haas probably still has one of the best Xfinity programs. I mean,
You think
they
so?
basically, I mean, I think so. I think Riley Herbst is one of those examples that we're talking about where he's got a shitload of money. Of course, he's going to get the best ride. Nobody's going to boot him from a seat when he's paying that kind of money, even though he doesn't win ever anything. So I don't know. That was a huge tangent. Lots of process there. But talking about safety, talking about driver talent, talking about a lot of crap.
I'm just going to say this is like an interviewer's dream. We love asking a question and getting long answers like that because it's like yes, I don't have to think for a few seconds. So we love this. Personally, sorry, Dalton, go ahead.
Well, I was wanting to ask this. Like, since you're pretty much an insider, do you know, or can you say that if drivers are probably talking about running maybe like a single file train for this Sunday at Talladega just because they don't want to get hurt?
So I haven't heard or seen anything that would indicate that. I'd be surprised if it works out that way. People are like, yeah, they're going to run single file. At the end of the day, they're all racing drivers. I mean, if you're somebody who's generally a back-of-the-pack kind of guy, and you've got the opportunity to make some stuff happen with some other back-of-the-pack guys to go win a race, and all you have to do is create a second lane, you're going to take the opportunity to do it. Yeah. Somebody's going to make a move that causes it not to be single file, and there will be another crash. It's Talladega, Daytona. I don't think that that's how it's going to be. Although I will say I don't put it past the drivers to make that happen. I think it's too high stakes of a race. I mean, we're in the playoffs. The playoff fates will be decided in Talladega, and desperation will set in by the time Stage 3 rolls around. I could see it happening. I mean, yeah.
So we're hearing today. I want to reverse back a little bit. Where did Steven realize he wanted to go fast in a car?
Oh gosh, usually this is the question people start with, so this is weird to do this in the middle of an interview.
Well, yeah, we like to do everything totally backwards here at LTC.
Yeah. Oh, and for what it's worth, Cole Custer has 3 top 10s in what is the most diverse season in NASCAR in terms of finishing, and we really think he's a hell of a driver. Come on.
Listen, yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. I think that Cole Custer definitely needs to go back into the lower series. I've said a long time.
He's behind McDowell.
I think there's just something wrong with the 41.
I pulled it up in my.
I'll die. Well, I don't think it's the car.
I'm
Michael McDowell. We've been talking about him.
He's my. This phone case was a Michael McDowell Daytona 500 winning phone case. I actually bet on him to win the 500 2 years ago when he won before I was even involved in NASCAR. And I put like $100 on it, and it paid $10,000 to win. I've been a McDowell fan since Tony Stewart retired. I looked at the top 10.
How you became a driver? Was that one bet? You're like,
no, don't hold that thread. I'm getting back to that. I promise. Let me just tell the McDowell story since we're talking about him. He is in front of Custer in points even after a 100-point driver penalty. Just wanted to and Custer is 119 points behind Eric Almirola, his next closest teammate. Anyways, McDowell, Homestead, 2015. Tony Stewart retires. Everybody's driving across the top 10. I hate them all. I don't want anything to do with any of these guys. I'm like, I don't want to root for him. I don't want to root for him. I don't want to root for him. All of a sudden, somebody driving the 59 car drives across the line. Like, who the hell is that? It's a second team for Levine Family Racing, driven by Michael McDowell. And I look into it, I'm like, man, this guy sucks. He's got nothing. And I'm 14 at the time, so I don't understand the politics of NASCAR. Of okay, basically you're locked into a tier of a finishing position based on what your car is. Like, if you're in a Hendrick, JGR, Penske, you can probably finish first through 12th. Like if you're in a Stewart Haas, not Harvick, like a Stewart Haas, not Harvick, an RCR or whatever, you're going to finish 13th through 20th. Whatever, you get my point. Like I didn't know that at the time, but I'm like, I like this guy. He's an underdog and he's doing well. And he's getting some chances. So from that point on, I rooted for McDowell, and I actually got to meet him when I moved to Charlotte to do all of this NASCAR stuff. I remember running into him at COTA at the first race I ever traveled to, and I'm like, "Hey, Michael." And I'm like, he looks at me, he's like, walks up, and I showed him my phone case. he's like, "Oh man, that's cool." And I talked to him for like 5-10 minutes on pit road, and I got a selfie with him. Then I'm like, "Yes, I aspire to be like you. You're kind of like my model here. I hopefully ride around in some bottom tier equipment for a bunch of years, eventually move my way up to some equipment that could finish races but still isn't very good, and then I overperform that, move up to some okay equipment and win a race." That's kind of the dream right now. Anyways, back to Cody's question real quick before we get too sidetracked on my many topics of conversation. I was a kid, and I really, when I was younger, had a speech impediment. I couldn't talk. I wouldn't talk. And now, as my mother likes to say, I won't shut up. So I wouldn't say anything in complete sentences, but as cars would drive by, I would name the brand of car that they were. And that created this obsession with toy cars, which led to an obsession with Mario Kart and Need for Speed Underground and NASCAR Thunder 2004. And I played all those. And one day, I remember it distinctly, I was 8 years old, and I win the championship on NASCAR Thunder 2004. Pretty damn good, Little did I know it was on rookie mode.
It still counts. It counts.
I walked up the steps, and I'm like, "Dad, I just won the championship." I'm like, "I am pretty good at these video games. I bet you'd be good at this in real life." And he looks at 8-year-old me and kind of is like, whatever, So for my 9th birthday, he takes me to a go-kart track in Newcastle, Delaware. And I went out and I broke the junior track record my first time out there. So then we started doing indoor rental kart racing for like years and years and years. And literally, like, we went to rental go-kart tracks and we paid to drive. At this specific rental go-kart track that I'm talking about, right now I have over 1,150 sessions at this racetrack, which at $20 a session, a lot of freaking money. Now, it doesn't price out to that because we did like, at some point we grew super close with the owner of this said track, and he gave us a VIP deal where we basically paid $200 a month for unlimited racing. And boy, oh boy, did we destroy that deal. I mean, we killed it. We did. I would go, my dad would leave me there as an 11-year-old kid on a Wednesday night, and I'd pay $50 for unlimited racing, and I'd do 13 races. I just wouldn't leave the go-kart. So that's basically how I refined my driving skills. And one day my dad's like, I'm done with this. He's like, I don't want to keep spending money on something to watch you just win or go out there and lollygag at the same 3 indoor racetracks all the time. He's like, I want to like do some competitive karting. Like, okay, so we buy a competitive go-kart, and we start racing. And most of the kids who do competitive karting are like Keelan Harvick. And if you don't know anything about Keelan Harvick, you've seen he's been in a go-kart, whether it be dirt or asphalt, constantly for the past 2 years. He's a young kid. Most kids who will end up being national champion level quality kart racers start karting when they're 4 or 5 years old. I started competitively karting when I was 14. So by the time my 3rd season had rolled around, I was actually a vice national champion. Never a national champion. I know, I was never quite that good. But I was the 2nd best at one point. And I was actually elected to Team USA to go race in Rotax Grand Finals, which is like the world's biggest kart racing event. It's 400 and something drivers from 56 different countries. Everybody flies out to one track in one country, and they're all given, each class is given the same chassis and same motor out of the box, brand new. You go out there and you race. I got my ass kicked, obviously, but it was a great experience, and it continued to help me learn as a driver. I'm at the top of my game, and I'm trying to figure out a way into stock car racing, and I'm 16 years old. And one day, family doctor shows up at my door and is basically crying. And we had known my family doctor for years. And he basically says to my mom, who's the one who answers the door, that my dad had terminal cancer. Stage 4, non-small cell lung cancer. Totally blindsided. Had no idea it was coming. Basically gave him somewhere between 6, maybe 10 months to live at most. When you're a 16-year-old kid, you're not exactly floating. Obviously, we'll talk about the logistical standpoint, like the dad side of this in a second. But from a racing career standpoint, when you're 16 years old, you're not floating in cash. So when my dad got sick and everything turned to my life financially, racing was the first cut out the door. I was done. And I walked away, and I was content with walking away because I had bigger things to deal with. From a dad standpoint, my dad and I had developed a really good relationship, like top barrel, best friend type stuff on top of being a great dad. And I was pretty devastated. So I remember in high school, I would a lot of times go to the nurse's office and like sleep because I didn't want to go to class, and like I couldn't really deal with what was going on. And then I remember it was 6 months on the day, and I'm like, he's still here. He's still doing okay. Why am I wasting my time? So I decided to kind of turn things on its head, and like I wanted to stay involved in racing, so I started commentating. And I found an occasional opportunity to drive every now and again, go-karts if I wanted to, but there wasn't really a lot of racing opportunities. So when college rolled around, I came here to UVA, and I kept commentating. I actually worked for ESPN doing some broadcast stuff for college sports.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa, hold up.
Yeah. Nothing big, like soccer, field hockey, lacrosse kind of stuff. But, you know, it turned into some pretty cool opportunities. And then one day, I can't explain why this happened. It's January. It's winter break of my second year going into my third year. So this is now 2021, January of 2021. Yeah, I'm saying this right. And I'm getting ready to move back to school. It's like 3 or 4 days after my birthday, and I've been miserable all week. I was just pissy. Dad walks into my room, still alive now, 4 years after his initial diagnosis. So really just outliving expectations here. And asks me what the hell is wrong. I'm like, Dad, here you are 4 years later, and I never got my shot. Like things kind of changed when you got sick. And like, don't get me wrong, I would trade you being around for racing any day of the week. I'm like, but that doesn't mean it doesn't still sting a little bit that we never got our shot. And he's almost cold when he says this. But he basically looks at me and says, I don't know what you want me to say. You gave up. You basically expected it to be handed to you. And when it wasn't anymore, you decided it wasn't worth going after. And walked away. Didn't say anything else. I'm like, you motherfucker. I'm like, you know that's what you had to say to get me to try. Because like, that coming from you, the guy who's been fighting cancer 8 times longer than he's been expected to fight cancer, that I can't possibly respond to racing and say, oh, well, guess I should just say F it and quit. So I started sending emails, and email after email went unanswered. Potential sponsors, potential team owners, drivers, whoever would listen to me. I actually think I talked to Quinn Houff at one point. Like I talked to a lot of people, but for the most part, nothing. Finally, a truck team owner on the West Coast, who I will not name, but if you know the truck series well enough, you can figure out who it is, no problem, because I'm pretty sure there's only one of them. Answers me and says that he wants me to drive in his driver development program. He says $200,000. Like, okay, let's do it. I got to do something. Start making phone calls, looking for sponsors. One of the last people that I emailed when I was ready to give up again, because I didn't get any bites. I had some money saved up that I was willing to spend on it, but it wouldn't have gotten me very far, was the Philadelphia 76ers commentator, Mark Zumoff. And Mark Zumoff and I had developed a relationship because at a Sixers game once, I walked up to him and just said hello, told him that I was a race car driver who was turned commentator, and that he was my commentator inspiration. So the whole reason this happens, any of this NASCAR career, the reason why I'm on this podcast, is because I decided after racing to commentate. If I never commentated, I never would have reached out to Mark at that Sixers game. And if I never reached out to Mark, we never would have gone down this path. Mark answers and says, listen, he's like, this sounds awesome. He's like, I'm so excited for you. I have no idea what the hell you're talking about. He's like, so let me refer you to one of my colleagues at NBC who might know something about it. The colleague that he referred me to was Michael Carey, formerly of TobyChristie.com and currently working for SRX, I believe. Great guy, Philly guy, worked with Mark back as an intern, I think, at NBC. So we go, and Michael reaches out to me and says, listen, he's like, I don't know how much I can help you. He's like, but I'm going to try. And attaches me on an email chain. And that email chain is with somebody that I've already reached out to named Josh Rayoum. And if you know who I drove for at Mid-Ohio, you can kind of see where this goes. Now, Josh never answers the email, but there's another guy on the email chain who does, and his name is Peter Salino. I have no fucking idea who Peter Salino is, and I still don't to this day. I have literally no clue what he does. I know he's powerful. I know he knows a lot of people in NASCAR. I know he's got some money. 5 minutes after the email is sent, Peter reaches out to me, calls me, and basically says, don't give so-and-so a fucking dime. And that's exactly what he says to me, referring to the guy on the West Coast. He's like, that thing is going to fall apart. He's like, if you spend your money there, you will never see a NASCAR sanctioned race and you will be screwed. Like, that's an ominous warning from a guy I've never met. I think I should trust him. And it's kind of weird because the other man had been really nice to me and had been trying to offer me these opportunities to get behind the wheel of a stock car. And Peter, I didn't know at all. Peter continues the conversation and basically says, pack your bags. I'm going to send you an address. You're moving to Charlotte. This is in April. I'm in the middle of a semester. Luckily, it's all on Zoom. And I'm like, I don't know this guy. I don't even know what he looks like. I've never met him before in my life. Should I do this? And that night, I started packing my apartment up in Charlottesville. And 3 days later, I drove down to some random address in Mount Holly, North Carolina. And I moved in and I met my new landlord. So I spent Saturday unpacking, Sunday watching the cup race. And during the cup race, at some point, I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? I'm like, what? What am I doing, man? So Peter sends me a text and says that he wants me to come get him at his literal house in Charlotte. And he's like, I need you to be here Monday morning. First thing, I'm going to take you somewhere. I'm like, okay. So I go and out of this house, this very nice house in Charlotte, walks this 5'5" stoutly. I mean, if you think I'm Italian, this guy is stoutly Italian. Who gets into my Dodge Charger and says, this is the piece of shit you drive? I'm like, I don't even fucking know who you are. What are we
you just picked up and moved across the country. It's the first thing he says in person.
So all right. So he starts talking to me about random stuff, just literally completely random stuff. As we drive to somewhere, he puts it an address in my GPS. I have no idea where it is. We pull up. It's the RBR shop. And I walk in, and he sits me down in an office in the corner of the building. And about 4 minutes later, in walks Josh Rayum, who looks at me and is like, who are you? And I'm like, that's an awfully existential question, isn't it? I don't know. And Peter walks back in and basically says, Josh, Steven, Josh, this is going to drive for you one day. Says, get him a job. And that day, I remember spending the whole day unwrapping Jesse Iwuji's truck and wanting to kill myself because of how miserable wrapping and unwrapping trucks was. From that point on, I worked for Josh doing basically bitch boy tasks, whatever he wanted me to do. And it was unpaid. And I would go in the shop at around 8 or 9 in the morning. I'd be done at around 5. And I'd literally leave straight from the shop and go to my job at Domino's from 6 o'clock until 2 in the morning to pay the bills. Most nights I wouldn't even go home to change. I would just change in the car. And it was brutal because it was like 4 hours a night of sleep tops.
So were you doing this while in school?
For the first few weeks, yeah. I actually had to go through finals week in Charlotte.
Damn.
Yeah, it was tough. That was really tough.
If you don't mind me asking, what are you going to school for? What is
economics.
Economics. So you have an economics major with homework and finals.
Yeah.
Along with working at a shop, a race shop.
Yeah, it was really hard. It was like, I still think sometimes that my constant exhaustion is from the rebound effect from that one summer. I think I lived 6 lives in that summer. It was crazy. I mean, there were times where I caught a plane home for a day. I remember for my family throws like a town, like 500 plus people at my house type 4th of July party. And I remember I hadn't seen them in like a month. So my dad booked me a flight on Saturday night. I got in at around 10 p.m. I fell face flat on the bed, knocked out until noon the next day, 14 hours. And the only reason I woke up is because that's when the band started playing at my house. And I know I'm making this sound like we're extremely wealthy. We're like well off, but like the band is because there's this guy who lives in my basement who's my piano teacher who plays in a really good band, and the band comes and plays at our 4th of July party because he doesn't pay rent in my basement. So That's kind of like, that's a weird little tidbit about my life that nobody needed to know, but I feel like it was necessary. It sounds like we're loaded because I'm talking about having a fucking private band in my house. It's not that. Anyways, I literally went downstairs. I was at the party. I went to bed at 10 p.m. and I was back at the Philadelphia International Airport at 5 a.m. on Monday. So I was there for maybe 36 hours and I drove straight to the shop for work. Like it was, that's cold, man. That is like a cold comment to just, wow, that's tough. I don't know if you saw that comment, guys. That was definitely directed at RBR, and that was like hit right in the feels. But anyways,
oh yeah, by the way, our viewers are animals. They will tear us apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I had somebody roasting you a little while ago. I'll bring it up just because I feel like now it's okay. But hold on, let me find it. Yeah. What's your favorite kind of Italian?
I mean, I guess, am I really that Italian? I feel like Mallozzi's like, I guess I am kind of Italian.
Yeah, I mean, dude, that screams Italian.
Yeah.
So I know it's kind of like maybe a little off topic, but what would you say is your favorite Italian food? And then I'll steer us back into this conversation. But what is your favorite?
I'll answer it and then I'll steer myself right back into the conversation.
Okay, perfect.
Oh God, favorite Italian. Okay, so my mom makes a phenomenal, and like my mom and dad, both Italian, both make great Italian food, but they make this gravy, and it's like gravy is red sauce. But they make
Italian.
Yeah,
that's Italian
exactly,
right there. Yeah.
Exactly. They make it with pepperoni, pork, sausage, and like they cook it. It's like a whole day ordeal. You really got to commit to making the gravy. It's freaking fantastic. That is my favorite Italian food, but it's my parents' homemade recipe. So I think that kind of counts. It's like passed down from generations before, but like that's my favorite Italian dish right there. It's just some classic pasta with the parents' gravy. It's the gravy that's the meal. Like my brother, 14 years old, he will literally put the gravy in a cup and drink it. It's like, yeah. So that's how good it is. It's freaking amazing. But
real Italian food. I mean, apart from like what our local Italian cuisine offers, I've never had like Italian cooked food, and I feel like I'm out.
We're literally from East Tennessee. Like we all live close to Bristol Motor Speedway.
I almost went to Bristol 2 weeks ago, but I have been twice to Bristol. I love Bristol. That's probably my favorite racetrack. What'd you say?
I said it's incredible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a great racetrack. Yeah, I can't imagine the local Italian cuisine in Eastern Tennessee is
now. We have a great pizza place. It's called Italian Village.
Yes.
Incredible pizza. I mean, best pizza that I've ever had.
Yeah, but I live in the state that borders New York. So are you really sure you want to qualify Eastern Tennessee pizza on the same level as...
I'll tell you what, if you ever make your way down to Bristol, I will personally drive you to Italian Village and let you judge it.
I'll buy the food.
And if
I'll go with you.
If it sucks, you're paying for the pizza. If it's good,
it doesn't.
It's 100% Italian owned. Like I'll pay for the pizza.
Yeah, like I understand guys through their accents when they're like calling out the pizzas. So yeah, I feel like it'd be offensive if I were to mimic them. But they're hard to understand. Like they straight up Italian men. So I do have a question. When you get the email, you pack up and you go to Charlotte, how does your family feel about this? Are they like, whoa, now, like, be careful?
I think my mom was a little more upset about it than my dad. I think my dad was kind of like proud that I don't know if I think now he does because I've talked about it so many times, like publicly. But I don't think at the time he realized that the whole reason I did it was because of what he said in January.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like he lit the fire under your ass, right?
Like, I don't really. Yeah, I don't think he knew it. I don't think he knew it at the time. I think maybe he subconsciously did it, but I don't know that he ever realized just how critical that one moment was. My dad. So this kind of flow into to the flow of the story here. Basically, I continued on working for Josh, and we had a hauler ride back from Knoxville. And Josh asked me to ride in the hauler because he ended up having to drive it that week with one of our other guys, Matt, and he needed somebody to keep him up. He was exhausted. So I did, and I obliged because I figured good time for bonding, and we did. That's where like our friendship started. We blew out a tire, and we ended up going to Chuck E. Cheese and getting lunch at Chuck E.
Must
Cheese.
be good year.
Yeah, right. So like, I mean, it was a good time. It was a good. We had a good time on that hauler ride home. But after that, it was kind of like an unspoken understanding that we were gonna get me in a race car. So we get in a late model. We buy one. We go out. We get one. We actually buy one from one of the guys who now works at Glory to God Racing, which is funny because that comes back later in my racing story. Basically, my first late model race was at Florence Motor Speedway, and full disclosure, I had no idea how to drive a manual transmission before I got behind the wheel of a stock car. This is how I learned how to do it. I learned how to do it because of racing. And I go for the practice day, and I do pretty well with it. Problem is, we had bought an engine and a transmission that were just demented. I mean, fucking bad. So at our first race weekend, my dad, who is so excited to come watch me race, that he decides to make the 10-hour trip to Florence, South Carolina, 3 days after a chemotherapy trip. So he's like sick, puking, nauseous, but he's driving. He's coming all the way. Woke up at 4 a.m. to make the drive. Is on his way down. And practices at like 11 in the morning. So I go out, I back it up, I put it in first, and the car drops itself out of first gear. Like just falls out. So I go to grab a gear again, and I don't grab first. I don't grab second. I don't grab third. And I don't grab fourth. I grab reverse. So moving forward at 30 miles an hour and throwing a car into a reverse is not good for the engine. I don't know if you guys knew that. I know that's kind of a revelation, but it wasn't good. So I actually continue to drive. I go out for the practice session, and I race the practice session. I told Matt, I'm like, Matt, I'm smoking. Like I think I fucking blew it up. And we pull back in, and Matt's like, listen. He's like, I don't think you blew up the motor. Looks good. We're fine. He's like, do not put it in first. Do not put it in second. Do not put it in reverse. I'm like, Matt, I can hardly start a car in first. I'm like, now you want me to learn how to do it in third? He's like, you better. He's like, your old man is driving 11 hours to come watch your race, and he is puking up a fucking storm. He's like, I guarantee you can learn how to start a goddamn manual in third. Okay, relax. So we do it. I think there were 20 cars entered. I think we finished 11th. Pretty good considering the fact that we were in a 602 and a 60. We were in a 602 motor and a 604 class. So we were basically getting shit on in terms of horsepower, and we still ran pretty well. So my dad, I think at that moment after the race, we had a revelation of how important that. I'm not sure. I think he had always known it, but I think right at that moment he realized how important his bond was into kind of pushing me to race. I think the post race was pretty emotional, and that whole weekend was just nuts. I mean, everything about my late model career is kind of surreal and pretty unbelievable. I basically bought a late model for 15 grand, and it ended up being closer to 20 by the time we got it all to work, and it was a piece of shit. I'm like, I don't have the money to do this. I'm like, I have one goal, and that is if I'm going to do this, I am going to make a NASCAR National Series start. That is all I want to do in life. He's like, I want to do it. My dad spent years funding my career. He did all of this to try and give me all the opportunities I could have. Now it's my turn. And if I could take the wheel and make one start, I can repay that favor. And basically that leads us to 2022. I ran probably 6 or 7 late model races, and I had no choice but to sell the late model because I didn't have any money. I was literally down to the last dollar. So I sold the late model and used that money to get to Josh to pay him for part of Mid-Ohio. The problem is we weren't really approved to run in the truck series just yet. So I had to kind of do some backdoor walking that I'm not really sure I can mention, so we'll just kind of leave that on the DL. But like basically, I ended up finding a way to get approved through my experience and my resume. And after my approval was confirmed for Mid Ohio, we ran into another problem, which is Josh, who had understood that I was denied for my approval, had sold the ride in the 43 to Daniil Kvyat. Because he was at the time unannounced for our Cup program, which we didn't know that he'd be racing our Cup program. We had determined that we had to get him approved by racing the Truck Series. Turns out that he got approved for road courses in all 3 series right off the bat. So he never needed to run the truck. So Josh convinced him, even though he wanted to run Mid Ohio, not to run, and gave me the seat. Funnily enough, the plan that we were discussing was me possibly calling up Tim Vines and running for Glory to God Racing. Now, if anybody knows anything about me and my story, one of the things that I'm probably known for, if anything, in the NASCAR community, is finally what happens when we get to Mid Ohio. So basically, Mid Ohio happens because I give Josh a bunch of money, 10, 15 grand, basically what I had the late model for, and all new go-karting equipment. And that's why my sponsor was CompKart. I love them. They're a brand that I've driven for many years in the go-karting realms. They helped me out a ton. And they're what made this happen. On top of that, I had a Facebook group give me $3 grand called NASCAR Shit Posting.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's literally a meme page.
We're literally in that group.
We're in it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can't believe you guys didn't know this. That's pretty kind of like a thing.
How new are we to that? What has it been, like a month?
A month, yeah.
We're about a half in.
Yeah, about a month and a half. We had the NASCAR Libertarian Caucus, Raucus, whatever they're called. I can't ever say their damn name, man.
Yeah, I feel like I'm one of the biggest memes in NASCAR shit posting.
Yeah, we had RJ on about a month and a half ago.
Yeah, so I wouldn't put. I'm a different kind of meme than RJ. I think it's because I was like, okay, I've been in this group for I think now I've been in it since 2019 or 2018. I'm like, these fucks all love NASCAR and would love Terry the Fat Shark. I was actually given a Terry the Fat Shark at Mid Ohio from a member of NASCAR shitposting, and there are videos of turns 4 and 5. Apparently, turns 4 and 5 were just like Stephen Mallozzi fans. Like it was overrun with like people who were like, okay, we're here to root for Mallozi. You know, like I think it made me so happy because I got a video of it and it was like people were literally. I was 22 seconds behind the field after lap 1, and we'll talk about again. I'm getting to this. Just give me like 5 minutes and I'll get to the story. I'm like 22 seconds behind the field, and there are people cheering for me because they're like, this is NASCAR shitposting guy. So basically, I wrote a post and I'm like, hey, like, let's get NASCAR shitposting on a truck. But NASCAR is pretty strict with their sponsorship. So I didn't want to throw any red flags in NASCAR. So basically, I just put NSP on the back of the truck. And that's it. And like I put names of everybody who donated to the cause. And at the end of the day, I think it was $2,100 is what they got me. So, I mean, like, that doesn't sound like a lot of money, but to people who are just random ass people who have no idea who I am, like, that was pretty cool of the community to get that kind of money for me. And I was really, like, excited to kind of have that happen. If you post this interview and say that I talk about NASCAR shit posting in this interview, I bet you NASCAR shit posting, like, will click, like if you put a timestamp, like Stephen Moss talks NASCAR shit posting at blank, a lot of people probably click on that and be like, yeah, baby, this is the best friggin' Facebook page on the face of the planet. So anyways, I put together my sponsors and Josh cut me a break. I mean, charged me half of what he usually gets for a truck ride, maybe a little less than that, considering, values. And I'm like, I remember getting to Mid Ohio and just being like, what is going on? Like, holy shit. shit. I still I couldn't really drive a manual. I'd never driven a manual on a road course. I had never downshifted a stock car at a road course until that day. Like that's what we're talking about. I clearly did it and did a pretty good job at it because we didn't blow a transmission, and two of the people who made their debuts that day in the truck series did blow transmissions. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I'm the best goddamn driver on the face of the planet. We go to Mid-Ohio, we practice, and like we got to acknowledge here what RBR is. RBR is not a front of the field kind of team. Okay, we are a budget team who is known for giving drivers opportunities in the sport. That is what we do. Our equipment is not like, we don't have the budget the big teams have. So the truck that I was in was driven by Jay Buford at Sonoma, and Buford was 5.8 seconds off in practice. That's a lot. And Buford's a guy who has been in the top 10 in the Xfinity road course racing before. Like, that is a long ways away. So the expectations were tempered for sure. And I go out and we are 6.6 seconds off the pace. I'm like, okay, you know what though? This is not that bad. But in practice, very early on in the session, we established two things. One, we had a starter issue. So we needed a jump box to get it going pretty much every time that we had to get it fired up. Part of that was my fault. Part of it was not my fault, but whatever. Two, glory to God Racing blew an oil line very early in practice. No big deal. They cleaned up the track. We got it going again. We're good, baby. We are digging. But then they go out again. They get the oil line fixed, and they go back out. And Mason Filippi, who, by the way, I reconciled with, is actually a really good guy and reached out to me on Twitter. We talked at the racetrack. Awesome dude. I actually have a lot of respect for Filippi. But Filippi is in front of me on the racetrack during practice. And we go into turn 9, and I go to turn the wheel, and nothing happens. I just go straight. I found myself looking at the turn 9 wall at Mid-Ohio. I'm like, oh, shit. Here we go. This is it. My career is over. I'm going to crash into this wall, and I'm never, ever, ever going to see a racetrack again. Smack the wall, spin it out. Truck won't start again. I get out furious. And this is also something that has been recognized, at least on my Twitter. I had a very good tweet where I get out of the truck and I'm looking all pissed. I'm like serious. And I noticed the camera, the Fox camera in the top right corner of the back turns. And I give him the good old finger guns, the double magic right there. And that video got shown on the qualifying or the race broadcast. I forget which one. So there's record of me doing that. And it's pretty funny. The commentators laugh. I laugh. All my friends and family laughed. It was good TV time.
Yeah.
The spin was, it was caught on camera. So it's pretty embarrassing. But clearly when you watch the spin, you can see I go into the corner and it just doesn't turn. Turns out all the spotters had walked up to my spotter and basically said, dude, the 46 blew an engine right in front of you. Like, just totally. I don't know if he blew an engine or he blew another oil line. He blew something. Like, there was oil all over, man. I don't know what happened there. So I didn't know that at the time until later. I thought I had just effed up because I'm like, I don't know.
So oil on the track is why the truck wouldn't turn whatsoever. You slid right through it. Okay.
Yeah. So I then got a call. Everybody comes up and talks to me, like spotters from other teams. A driver from another team came up to me. Funnily enough, I had to talk to Carson Hocevar after that because he flipped me off and I didn't know why. He's a good guy too. But
oh god, that's a cult Illuminati too.
he apparently doesn't remember flipping me off. He was super nice about it. He's like, dude, I'm sorry. I'm like, it's okay. I just don't know what I did to you. I was trying to let you go. I know I'm 6 seconds slower than you. I just don't know why you flipped me off. Josh and the guys, we don't have backup trucks either, so they got thrashing on that thing, and it was not pretty. It looked okay from a distance, but then you got closer and you're like, holy crap, this thing is, the whole left side sheet metal is torn off. So actually, as a matter of fact,
oh, There it is.
Damn.
Sort of. Yeah, we got a classic number 43 from the side of that racetrack. We're just sitting here. So I ended up getting all the sheet metal off it, which is cool. But we go out and we qualify. We decide it's raining. We're not going to do anything. We've already been the truck once. We don't need to do it again. We qualify last. Lap 1 of the race. We go around, and I don't realize that nobody tells me it's the green flag lap. So I'm just kind of cruising, like getting a feel for the truck. And they're like, dude, we're going green. I'm like, well, what the hell? I didn't know we were going green. So I'm like, if you watch the start of the race, you can see in the background, I'm like 10, 15 car lengths behind the field. So I go into turn 2, and I'm like, holy shit, the truck won't turn right. So I'm like really fighting it to get it to turn right. We go into turn 4, and the same thing happens, and it won't turn right again. Straight off the racetrack. Straight off, lap 1. I ended up 23 seconds behind for the first lap. And I am just in front of the leaders, like probably a lap and a half away from losing a lap. And guess what? My friends from Glory to God Racing save the day and blow a motor right there. Actually, for real this time, blow it up. So what had happened was right after the wreck, after everybody comes up and talks to me, not only did, for what it's worth, I will say this about Glory to God. Somebody from their crew did come over and apologize to Josh for what had happened. So that was good. Nobody apologized to me though, except for Filippi, who again had no control over that whatsoever. So Toby Christie calls me, and at this point, I've established really good relationship with Toby Christie, like fantastic. I actually work for him part-time. I do some esports reporting for him. He says, hey buddy, he's like, what happened there? Like, you want to know what happened? I was like, yeah. I'm like, Glory to God Racing is the biggest fucking joke of an organization ever. He's like, do you want to change that? I'm like, yeah, take out the fucking and
keep the
maybe
joke.
say NASCAR instead of ever to make it sound better. I'm like, I don't care. I'm like, you can say whatever the hell you want. I'm like, I'm pissed. I'm like, for me, I've got nothing to lose. I'm like, chances I do this again are almost nothing now.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell we are talking about. I'm like, this is a professional racing organization, and they don't know how to put an oil line on. I'm like, it just cost me thousands of dollars. I'm like, yeah, I'm pissed off. I don't have the money to do one of these races. And now you're telling me that I have to pay more for the race that I already did. I'm like, so I don't know. I'm going to stand by that comment, and I'll stand by it publicly to anybody who asks. I'm like, I mean, RBR has not been the epitome of success recently, but it was so frustrating. You could have paid me. I'm not mechanically inclined, super mechanically inclined at least. You could have paid me $100 to go put it on the oil line, and it wouldn't have fallen off twice. I would have gotten it right after the second time, you know?
Did they have a rebuttal at all when you said that?
He never said anything to me. Tim Vines, who is active on Twitter, never had anything to say on Twitter, which is weird because sometimes he just needs to be quiet and he continues to argue with people. G2G's Twitter account, which is probably the least professional Twitter account I've ever seen, said nothing about it. Nobody publicly from G2G said anything about it. They didn't respond to it. They didn't want to, and I don't think they could have because the only person in the entire response, I had hundreds of responses on Twitter, quite literally, and people tweeted and agreed with me. People quote tweeted me, like it was, you know. I later sent a tweet out with the still shot of the finger gun saying when you're 6 seconds off the pace and just wrecked the truck, but it's still your NASCAR debut, and people found that really funny too. We kept quoting me on Glory to God, and we're like, you know, okay, yeah. The only person who disagreed with me was Dave Moody. And Moody said that I should run at least 15 laps, more than 15 laps before I start talking about other teams. And I said, Dave, I tried to run more than 15 laps. I wrecked because they couldn't put a fucking oil line on. Like, I don't know what you want me to do. I didn't like, I mean, I try to be funny about it, but at the same time, like, I mean, I could have all the experience in the world. You could have put Kyle Busch in there. And if he doesn't know there's oil on the track, he's probably going to wreck his truck too, you know? and I understand that I'm not from a super qualified standpoint to talk about all this stuff, but I am a fan of NASCAR. And I know about the G2G stuff that's gone on. I know about, the history of small organizations in NASCAR. And I know things that should and shouldn't happen for a professional racing organization. And that frustrated me. If it happens once, everybody makes mistakes. If you go out and it happens again, that's infuriating. If it goes out and then you proceed to blow the engine in the race after 9 laps, chances are you weren't ready to go to the racetrack to begin with. So no rebuttal from G2G's friend. But anyways, we ended up staying on the lead lap because G2G blows up. Finished stage 1 on the lead lap, I think in 33rd place or something. Stage 2, something else big happened in stage 1. My teammate, Kenko Miura, at the time, goes off on the exit of turn 2 and ramps it in the dirt patch, destroys the left control arm on the front end, kills it, goes back to the garage. They start working on welding it back together. So as far as I know, they lost their hauler and are now using it. That's tough. That's tough. I've driven a dually trailer for Rayu to a race before. I forget why we had one. I think it was for a Natalie Decker show car. But that's tough. Listen, I don't ill wish them anything. I just wish Tim Vines was less arrogant on Twitter and recognized what he was. And I just wish that they had at least nobody came up and apologized to me about the whole Ohio incident. That really frustrated me. Anyways, so stage 2, so Kenko's in the garage, welding that back together. Stage 2 rolls around, and immediately go out there, and I'm really, really slow. I'm like, Greg, did we not put on new tires for the stage? He's like, don't worry about it, just drive. Okay, so we drive. I lose a lap, and I actually end up being the lucky dog at the end of stage 2. And Greg comes on. He's like, buddy, he's like, great job. He's like, now I got something for you. He's like, you were on used tires. He's like, you were on an old set there. He's like, so now we got one more fresh set of Goodyears to put on there. He's like, so go get them. You're going to be a lot faster. And we actually started making our way through the field a little bit. We were running some decently competitive lap times at the back of the pack. We were doing okay. Well, then the string of cautions comes. Caution after caution after caution. And with 20 to go, I ended up spilling my water bottle underneath my butt, which made my ass burn a little bit. So that wasn't great. But I also had no water for 20 laps, which I think the cockpit temperature was 131 degrees that day. It was hot. I ended up losing 9 pounds of water weight over the course of that race.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I ended up coming off at 182. And obviously part of that, I don't think that's normal. I think part of that's because I'm not exactly in as great of racing shape as a lot of the full-time guys are. So I ended up 27th at some point when I noticed that Kenko's back out on the racetrack. Cautions keep coming. And then we get the final restart with 5 to go. And I find myself in 18th, and one of the trucks in front of me is Timmy Hill, who is destroyed in the front end. I mean, totally just crushed, and probably going to blow up if he keeps going. And we're gaining on him. We're catching him. But one of the guys I'm fighting with, for some inexplicable reason, is the 33. I'm like, he's 16 laps down. What the hell are we doing? So turn 2, he sends it. Sends it on me. So I let him go. I'm like, screw this. There's less than 2 to go, and I got to catch Timmy Hill. If we're going to catch him together, we can catch him. I don't care if you're in front of me. You're 16 laps down. Then after, on the exit of 2, he pulls over and lets me go again. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I think I have to mention, Kenko didn't speak English very well. We had Akinori Ogata there translating as part of our choreography, I guess you could say, for that weekend. So then he decides he wants to accelerate. And now we're basically side by side going down turns towards turn 4. And I'm not really sure if he hit me or not, but regardless of what happened, the pressure of being side by side with somebody caused me to go too deep into the corner. And I had so much brake fade that I didn't stop. I had done such a good job at managing the brake fade, doing a lot of pumping, keeping the system cool, all that good stuff. And I had just forgotten. I'd gotten so aggressive that I went straight to the pedal and it went to the floor. And I'm like, this is it. This is it. Not only am I now going to owe 25 grand because I'm going to go off into the barrier at the end of turn 4, I am going to not finish my NASCAR debut, which is the only goal I had set for myself. And I am going, I'm going to be some, I don't know. I just remember, like, I'm looking at the barrier and I'm like, no, like, this is not going to happen. So I put my foot back on the gas. And as I go through the gravel trap, I just lock it to the right as hard as I can. And I spin it around. I'm like, holy shit, we did it. But then I realized, devastation. We stalled it.
Oh, and you had to have the box to start it.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
I'm like, this is it. I'm like, this is it. We're done. So my spotter, and he loves when I talk about him, PJ, comes on the radio and goes, all right, man, get her fired up. You're good. I'm like, no, we're not good. Like, we're just, this is it, man. And PJ was like me. He was actually an intern at RBR. He wrapped cars. He ended up winning the spot. So I said, do it for me, man. Go for it. And I go to all my switches, turn them all off, hit them back on again. Starter or ignition, starter, nothing. Like, this can't be happening. This can't be happening. This can't be happening. On comes Josh to the radio and goes, all right, listen, Mallozi, you got to believe in the truck. I'm like, what? He's like, you gotta believe in the truck, man. He's like, you're not believing in it. I'm like, Josh, I spent my whole life for this fucking moment, and you're telling me I gotta believe in a goddamn piece of metal? He's like, buddy, just do it. I'm like, all right, I fucking believe. Hit all the switches, ignition, starter, boom, comes to life. I'm like, you son of a bitch. Put that baby in gear, dropped it, drove away. I'm like, holy moly. Finished on the lead lap in 22nd. But chances are we probably could have had 17th or 18th. We were in front of some pretty good. We were in front of Crafton, DiBenedetto, Purdy. Like, we were in front of a lot of drivers that were in top tier equipment that we had a shot to beat. And we, for what it's worth, too, 17th would have been RBR's best finish of the year. And also, for what it's worth, RBR has not finished better than 31st since I crossed the line at Mid-Ohio.
Well, also, it being your first road course.
My first race ever.
Your first race ever on a road course.
Yeah. On a track I'd never been to, in a car I've never driven, like, it was crazy. Like, that's a crazy good finish. And I just think, it was the best of the the 5 people making their truck debut that day. So that was pretty cool.
Broken Potato wants to know, what's some advice you'd give to younger fans of NASCAR who want to get into the field? Like something you wish you could have heard. Smiley face.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I think something that I wish I had done, and there's a lot of it, it's not to be afraid to reach out to people. I think a lot of people are more willing to help than like fans, drivers, anybody realizes. Like, a lot of people are willing to help out. And I think if I had known that earlier, I would have made a lot of phone calls before I had just decided to throw in the towel and walk away from racing. I think it's tough, and I think you got to be really level-headed and really strong-minded to make it happen. But I think if you're willing to commit the time and the effort to making it happen, it can. And you really can't be afraid to reach out to people. I mean, the only way you're going to do this is with help. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing that me and Cody found out early on starting this show. A lot of people within this industry are very easy to talk to once you talk to them.
Yeah. It's just tough, It's like a gated community, but once you get inside, it's like a resort. You just got to get through the gate.
That's a very good analogy. That's a good analogy.
It's beautiful, but like on the outside looking in, it looks like a treacherous task to get in. So,
okay. So speaking of getting into the field, I want to go back. I want to make sure I heard this right. Did you say that you had a job for wrapping trucks?
So that was my job at first. That's what Josh wanted me to do. And I basically walked into his office after a week and a half and said, Josh, listen, I'm not getting paid. I'm like, this job is miserable and I don't want to do it. And then I basically just became, the shop's runner. I would go get parts. I would help move stuff around. I'd pick up stuff from storage. I'd drop stuff off at storage and drive the dually with the trailer around. My second day on the job, I took out Mike Harmon's mailbox.
Did he want to meet you at Applebee's after that?
I still know if he knows it was me. I know his crew does, though, because they all made fun of me. And actually, one of his old crew members works at RBR now and won't let me hear the end of it. It's pretty funny when I knocked out. I did that, and they actually took me to some random ass barn in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina. That's where Mike Harmon's old Bristol car is, the one that he crashed and almost died in. He still has it there. He still has it,
dude,
all torn up. But like I posted a picture of it to my Twitter. If you go look through it, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, because somebody was asking about the wreck, and I'm like, actually, Mike Harmon still has this car, and I know he does because I've seen it. It's just sitting there. It's pretty cool.
That's dope.
Yeah.
I mean, not dope that he wrecked, but dope that he still has the car.
Yeah. Also not dope that I took out his mailbox. I feel pretty bad about that one, but such is life.
Well, real quick, because the reason why I asked that is because that's actually my dream job. Because I currently work at this trucking company, and I'm a graphic installer for all these moving trucks and curtain trucks, 16-wheeler trucks, you name it. And that was what I was wanting to get into, wrapping cars for a Cup Series team or anything like that. I just kind of wanted to ask how that was, or how difficult it was, or anything like that. What are the challenges of it?
So I'm not good with my hands. If you're good with your hands and that's something you can do, it's probably not a bad job. It takes a few hours a day. You can wrap cars in a couple hours if you're really good at it. I would say for somebody who's experienced in the field, it's not that difficult to learn at all. PJ knew nothing about wrapping cars, and that's what his job became. He became a graphic installer, wrapping cars, and he has done that for Cup teams, and he's done that for Xfinity teams, and he's done it for truck teams. So it took him about 6 months to learn, and then all of a sudden he was doing it. So that's something you want to do. It's definitely a possibility. I hate it. I can't do it. But if that's something that you're passionate about and that you want to do, it's a lot easier. I think it's a lot easier to break in that industry than it sounds.
Okay, yeah, because that, again, that's what I wanted to do, and I'm basically getting that experience right now. So
yeah.
So let's take it back. All right, so you finish the race at Mid Ohio, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Mid Ohio. You're on your cool down lap. You're coming back. You take off your helmet. Joe, I like Jacob on here because he is so cute.
Agreed.
I appreciate it, man. Dude, that's what I do. You're on a cool down lap. You're taking off your helmet and your gloves. What was the feelings that you were experiencing? Well, I mean, were you hungry to go? I mean, obviously, I guarantee you were hungry to go after more. But were you disappointed? More disappointed? Were you relieved?
I was emotional. That was a holy shit I just did it moment.
Yeah.
I was a little frustrated that I had finished 22nd and not 17th. But
yeah.
I wasn't that frustrated because I think 22nd exceeded my expectations of where I was going to finish. And I had a lead lap finish. I went from 6 seconds off the pace of practice to a lead lap finish. With a damaged truck, with a truck that was beaten and battered and bruised. I remember just looking at my dad and I cried and I hugged him. There's some pretty cool pictures of those moments where I had all my family and friends there. My friends were spotting for me. A lot of people that I had known and loved for years were on the headset talking to me. A lot of my family made the trip down to come watch it. It was unbelievable. I mean, it was one of those things. Honestly, if you want to talk about hunger or whether or not I was hungry for more, when I got out of the truck at Mid-Ohio, it's the most distinctive feeling I think I can remember. I remember being content. I was like, if this is as far as I ever make it and I never go another step in my life, I think that's okay. I mean, 3,900 people in the history of the world have made a NASCAR start, and you're now one of them. I'm like, I think I went further than I was ever supposed to and further than people ever expected me to go. 3 months later, sitting here giving an interview talking still about Mid-Ohio, yes, I would like to make another start. It's just a matter of money, man. Money is such a difficult topic in NASCAR. And like, I think that's probably Mid-Ohio. I don't know that any event I ever do will ever compete with that. And that is such a special race. I remember I had to sign autographs for people who that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm on Racing Reference for life. I'm on media for life. Like, I've got all these. I will always be able to prove to my family, my friends, my kids, whoever, like, hey, I did this experience thing that not many people ever get to say. Like, technically, I'm a professional athlete. Like, I've done it. I remember thinking, like, when I got out of that car, first off, I was dead. I was pretty much exhausted. But I remember thinking, like, this is the end of the movie. Like, this is, if there's a movie about your career and your life, like, this is where it ends. You're like, your dad is alive 6 years after the fact. He's fought through cancer 10 times longer than people expected him to. You made it to NASCAR, something you never thought would be possible. And like, you did well. Like, you didn't win. It's not like the fake storybook ending. It's like the realistic, okay, 22nd place is phenomenal for what you were trying to do out there. I remember talking to Taylor Kitchen afterward, TobyChristie.com reporter, and I got super emotional. And like, it's just crazy. It is one of those things that I don't think will ever set in that I actually had the chance to do. And while I hope to do it again, I think there's a part of me that understands that to do it full time or to do it again would be a blessing. And like, sometimes you just got to take what you got and be happy with it,
That's honestly, and I can relate to you on the money thing, because before the show ever existed, and I've told Cody this many times, like, this was something that I wanted to do, but you get into it and do the research, you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a lot more than I'll ever have, and that's it, right? I mean, money's money. You either got it or you don't, and that's the thing. So
the only reason I was able to do it, and the only reason I was ever able to do any of it, there's so many things, and I've talked about a dozen of them already, but one of the other things that had to happen was COVID. If COVID didn't happen, I never would have been able to make this happen, because COVID allowed me to work pretty consistently without like consequence, because there was nothing else to do.
Yeah.
And about a week after COVID started, it was the day that the market really crashed and was at rock bottom. I walked into the living room to see my dad looking at a stock portfolio, and it is like 75% down for the week. Like, it is ugly. It has been hammered. And he looks at me, doesn't talk about his portfolio. He says, you should start investing. And I had, I think, 17 or 18 grand at the time. And I put every dollar I had into the stock market. And that type of investment opportunity doesn't come about often. I mean, it's just there. And I learned the powers of investing. And right there, by the time the year was out, I had basically had 75 grand from the 15 or 20 that I started with. And that was pretty much all the money I used to move to Charlotte, to pay the rent, to buy the race car, to pay the entry fees, to do this, to do that, to buy my simulator. I've got a simulator now that's probably the stupidest fucking purchase I've ever made, but I bought it. Like, for what it's worth, that helped me learn how to shift really well on a stock car, and it helped me practice for Mid-Ohio. So, I mean, it's one of those things, man. I don't know that I'll ever get an opportunity like that again.
Dalton, you got Cody. Cody's been quiet.
I have been quiet. Yeah. No, I've just been listening.
This is rare.
I know. Yeah, I'm never quiet at all. So, what do you have in your foreseeable future? What is directly ahead of you right now? Let's say, just for all intents and purposes, to close out the year, what is directly in front of you?
Trying to win back my ex-girlfriend probably is step one.
Okay, hell yeah.
Standing out.
No, in all seriousness, I don't I don't really know. Like I've kind of been living the past year and a half of my life in a very unsure state, and I think that's kind of how it's going. I've been sending a lot of emails looking for sponsorship, phone calls. I've got nothing. I'm a little discouraged at this point. I think my hair kind of gives that away that I'm a rat. Like I got the scraggly beard. I look like I'm going through it. I kind of look like I'm going through a divorce right now. I'm like in a bachelor pad with a.
Honestly, you look like you're in a boy band.
Okay, I think that's better than it.
You're part of the boy band where it's like they're starting to get their life together.
I think that's better than going through a divorce. But anyways, yeah, I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm trying to work through it step by step and day by day, and I'd really like to get behind the wheel next year at a few short tracks, because my next objective, and I've done a great job. I haven't been like, okay, let's go win a truck championship. I've been like, let's do step by step. Like step one was to learn more about NASCAR, and I did it. Step two was to get behind the wheel of a late model and see if I can do this. I did that. Step three was to make a NASCAR National Series start. I did that. Step four, my next step, the next big thing would be to run Daytona. Any series, I don't care. I want to run Daytona. I don't even know. I haven't even gotten this far with NASCAR because I haven't had the money. So there's no point in me asking. I don't know if I'm even approved to run short tracks. I would have to imagine that I would be close. Maybe I would need an ARCA start the day before to get it done. But I think that's probably, in the works, something that I could talk about getting done. No.
Can you take? So we know, obviously, we all know. Can you take? Are you allowed? First off, are you allowed? But can you take people through an approval process and like? Because it's not just as easy as what everybody thinks it is. It is a pain, right?
I'll put it to you this way. Basically, you have to go through a whole resume process where you fill out your racing resume, you submit it to NASCAR for review, and NASCAR basically has entitled Brett Bodine to that position. Bodine's like the president of competition for NASCAR. He makes all these decisions and he kind of goes about it. And Bodine reviews the application. And he says you're either qualified or you're not qualified to run. And basically the conclusion was, when he saw my application, was no. I ended up using some resources to figure out a way to get approved solely conditionally for Mid-Ohio. And that's a whole other story. That is probably the one story that I can't talk about. That's probably it. Like that's probably the list of all the stories in the world that I can't talk about. That is the one. Basically, at the end of the day, it's basically a review process of, are you qualified based on merit? And it's, I don't want to say it's not a complicated process, but it's not an easy one to get done. Like it's not like you have to go through hoops and hurdles. It's not easy. Like I have a pretty extensive racing background. I'm a go-karting vice national champion, Team USA representative. I was nationally ranked for years in kart racing. I did late model racing. I never was involved in a single late model caution. Not one, not a single caution in late models was I involved in. I never DNF'd. I never finished more than 4 laps down. Like I did a lot of I did 7 or 8 races, and all that held true, and it still wasn't enough to get approved for the truck series. So what people don't realize is ARCA, which I think is what Colby's talking about in the comments right now, is where you have to go, and ARCA is expensive if you want to be competitive in a competitive car. It's gone up in price significantly. So yeah, the approval process is not extensively complicated, and I think Bodine's a good guy for the job. I just think it's very rigorous.
It's a good word for it.
Yes.
We've had a few stories on how it goes. When I heard Brett Bodine's name brought up, my eyebrows tweaked, and I was like, "Did you just say who I thought you just said?" And they were like, "Yeah, Brett Bodine." I was like,
Yeah.
"I didn't even think he was a part of NASCAR anymore."
Oh yeah, he's a huge part of NASCAR.
Yeah,
he's huge. He is the hammer that decides in all. I think in all 3 series. I think he's the one who decides who's approved and who's not. Which is bad news because he was my biggest rival in NASCAR Thunder 2004.
He knew it. He was like, "Oh man."
He was not a fan of. He was not a fan of the Mallozzi Racing number 53. So the Nikon car really got shit on.
Shout out that Nikon car, man.
Yeah,
that was a good scheme.
Yeah,
it was a good scheme.
So yeah.
Trying to think of something else that I was getting ready to say and I lost it. It's my ADHD popping in. Oh, that's what I was going to ask. So like, are you still in school?
Yes.
How many semesters do you have left?
This is it. I'm done.
You're done after this, right?
Probably go to law school.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
So like we've all Cody's currently in college. Dalton, you graduated college, correct?
Yeah, I'm done.
All right. I'm done. We understand like what college is, man. Like especially during final week, you know, it's pretty ruthless. No matter what degree you're going after, it's pretty ruthless. Some more than others.
And Jacob filmed a movie one time during finals week.
We did film a movie.
I never had finals, so
must be nice.
Yeah, finals week is I'm in midterm week right now, so I'm going through it as we speak.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. Like finals, I mean, I keep thinking about what you said. You were working at Domino's. You were spending 90%, or I would say probably like 60%, but it sounds like 90% of your day at the shop, doing stuff, and then finals on top of all that. I mean, all that hard work. Is there a moment now that you have made that NASCAR start? Do you think was there any moment where you're like, that wasn't worth it? Or was it all worth it?
I don't think I've ever said that it's not worth it. It was the most difficult. It has made me very unempathetic. I'll tell you that. I have a lot of friends who like bitch after like a 6-hour work shift. I'm just like, shut the hell up, dude. Like, you don't even know. You've got no idea what it's like to work for free for a 14-hour day because you want something so badly that you need it. I'm like, if you don't want to work, then don't fucking work. I don't care. I don't want to hear about it. I like it's made me really unempathetic for people who think that they can't do it because chances are you probably can. You're just not either doing the right thing or you're too goddamn lazy.
Lazy to
like, you know, it drove me freaking crazy. Like, I got accused of cheating on a calc exam that I took that semester. Do you want to know what I got on that calc exam? A 58. What the hell could I have cheated on?
They accused you of cheating?
If I'm cheating, so I'm at the RBR shop at the end of May. It's like 2 weeks after finals end. I got all my grades back. I got a B in calc after 58 on the final. Pretty damn good, I'd say. They call me because they want to talk about my final exam score. I'm like, okay, here, let's do it. They're like, so we know it's some Russian guy. Like, so we noticed that you didn't show your work for said problem. I'm like, what do you gave me 3 out of 25 points on that question. What are we talking about right now? And I remember that for me is the moment where I was so frustrated. I'm like, I either want to go back to school or I want to race. I don't want to do both anymore. I can't do this. I am so pissed off with I am in the middle of like 5 straight days where I am ready to jump off a goddamn bridge. I have had like 16 hours of sleep total. And I swear to God, if you're about to bullshit me on how you think I cheated on an exam where I get a 58, I'm going to drive to Charlottesville and clock you in the face. So like it was like I don't understand it, and he's like, well, you didn't show your work. So I remember I drove home that night after work, and it was 2:30 in the morning, and I went to the dumpster behind my house, and I dug through the dumpster and found the bag of trash with my calculus notebook in it, and I sent him the pictures of the work that he had accused me of not doing, because he said I used a derivative calculator, which if you know math, it's like, okay. And I sent him pictures of it, and I'm like, is this good? And then he never answered me, and I never heard back about it ever again. I was furious. I was like, this is ridiculous. You gave me 3 points, and I got a 58 on the exam, and you think I cheated. Other than that, I don't think I've ever really regretted the grind. I think it's like, yeah, it's more of like, okay, so now I think it's also an unfortunate thing to know, because now I think I know that if there's something I want, I could probably do it if I try hard enough.
Yeah.
You
stole my next question, but that's what I was going to ask. Do you still have a good relationship with Rayum? That's how we say his name, right?
Yeah. I call him all the time. Yeah. I call him all the time. I talk to him all the time. I still have him out with go-kart stuff. He was supposed to do go-karting nationals, but the concussion thing kind of threw us for a loop. If I go to business school, if I go to law school, I'll go to UVA. And if a good thing in NASCAR comes along, I'll probably take a gap year from school, broken potato. But yeah, I would say Josh is one of my closest friends. I love the guy. I think people who know Josh Ream know what kind of guy he is. I hate to tell you, the class average was a 64. I was below average. So, yeah, he's just one of those guys who has a very similar background to me in racing. And that's like, he started out with his dad, go-kart racing in road tax karts, moved up to stock cars, only did late models for, a certain amount of time before he moved on to the truck series. Kind of didn't have a lot of money to be doing it. Kind of drove in not top tier equipment, and kind of what he continues to do today. He's just always on the grind. Which is why I think Josh is so empathetic with drivers who need opportunities and don't necessarily have the money to get it done, because I think he understands how difficult it really is.
I think you're Cody. How many drivers have we had from Rayum on here now?
I think that's 2.
I think 2. Yeah, we're pretty good friends with the old Hack Daddy himself, Chris Hacker. So.
Oh, Hacker man.
Yeah.
That was a whole ordeal that happened with Hacker, but I don't know. I love Chris Hacker. I think he's a great guy. I've talked to him. I think I would call him a friend. I think he's a friend of mine.
Good people.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hacker's a good guy.
Did Brayton race for them too? For
that?
Yeah, Brayton won.
Cheese Flames.
Oh, so that is 3. Okay.
Yeah. Cheese Flames.
He's a great guy too. He's a really good guy.
Yeah. Brayton is a good friend of the show. Yeah, he did the figure 8 world championship, and he actually had an LTC sticker on his car. So it was gnarly. Yeah.
It was awesome.
That sounds like fun. Figure 8 world championship. Maybe that's where I'm going. Maybe I'll be a professional figure 8 racer from now on.
Yeah, that is it.
Yeah.
Don't worry, my car is started, so the battery is gonna die.
So you mentioned working at ESPN. I did want to wrap around to that again, because now you're doing some media reporting stuff, which is what we do. So I do want to talk about that.
Yeah. So basically, after I did a bunch of kart commentary, when I got here, I started investigating ways to stay involved in commentating, and I came across some sports media classes that were here, and one of them was called Sports Media Production. And basically, we're a pretty big school. Like, we're good. We won the NCAA men's basketball championship a few years ago. We consistently win the men's lacrosse championship. We consistently win Olympic sports all the time. So I ended up connecting with the guy who runs a lot of the stuff for the ACC network down here. And the ACC network obviously is just ESPN under a different channel. But basically he ended up recognizing that we have a lot of student commentators that I'd be perfect for the role. So I've actually called everything from from women's lacrosse, women's field hockey, volleyball, women's soccer, and men's soccer. Called all of those sports at different times in my life. I know nothing about any of them, and in order to commentate, I learned about all of those games in order to like be able to talk about them professionally.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah. That was God. I wish I was talking about racing. I would love to get a job for like Fox or NBC and do some NASCAR related stuff. I feel like I've got a really good background to do that. But those jobs are in slim pickings, you know.
Well, I was getting ready to say you have the personality to do.
I like to think so. I
think you do. Yeah,
So-
you have the high energy. I mean, definitely. Dalton ruined any shot of us working for NBC.
Why?
Earlier
Fox.
this year.
Fox. NBC likes us. It's Fox.
Oh, it's Fox.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah, it was Fox. It was Daytona 500. Yeah.
GFD, baby.
Yeah.
What did you do?
So in the Daytona 500 this year, this is when Cooper and I went.
Cover the premise. You know how Fox only shows children in the stands now? That's
Yeah.
that's Dalton's
That's because of
fault.
Dalton.
Yeah, so it was the end of stage one. It was when the first big wreck happened, and Kyle Busch was involved. And then I hear his name on the intercom, and I scream, "God fucking damn it!" And then Fox caught me saying that, like, right
On national air.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now put yourself in Cody and my shoes, because we're at home watching the race, and all we see is Dalton's face plastered up on the TV, and then we see him say it, and we're like, "Oh shit!"
That's hilarious.
No, well, NBC actually liked it though. Like
NBC likes us. Yeah.
Yeah, like you saw at Bristol, like 2 months later, saying you went from a Daytona 500 meeting to meeting Kyle Busch. Like, way to go! So
That's pretty cool.
yeah, good times.
Wow. How do you feel about the KFB move?
I'm ready. I'm fucking done with Toyota. I'm fucking done with JGR. I'm ready to move on. I've had enough. I'm tired of suffering.
I bet you he wins some races with RCR.
I'm calling 3 to 4 already.
Wow. And then I bet you Austin Dillon wins none.
No.
Put my money on it right now.
You said earlier you were a McDowell fan, so I actually was just texting everybody in Left Turn Call about McDowell and my theories. I want to get your opinion on it. I think Michael McDowell is going to be the Dale Jarrett of our generation, meaning Dale Jarrett was around 40 years old when he started winning, really like a lot of amounts. And McDowell has kind of started to put on these like top 10 runs. I mean, every week it seems like if you look in the top 10, there he is. There's McDowell.
Yeah,
There's
he was
34
almost there in Texas last week too.
Yeah. I mean, he's just always there. I have said that front row is going to be like the Robert Yates.
So I think it's an interesting take, but I think it's difficult right now. If you subtract the penalty, because obviously that will kill his standings ranking. McDowell is only 8 points behind Bubba Wallace for the highest ranking, or no, Eric Jones is for 18th in the points. Basically, that's a great season. The problem is NASCAR has become much more top heavy, meaning that like the top teams win a lot more than the other team. Like think about it in 1996, like 13 different teams won races or something. Like not numbers, like teams.
Yeah.
And you also have the problem of there's a huge youth movement going on. Like the Kyle Busch, a two-time Cup champion, is being booted from his ride, probably for Joe Gibbs' grandson Ty. Like for a 20-year-old kid who I don't like very much. Ty Gibbs is the epitome of everything I've talked about money. Like, oh no shit, he's gonna be a good goddamn driver. I mean, what are we talking about? The kid's been in a race car since he was born because Grandpa Joe has money floating out of his ass to spend on race cars. I mean, I bet you most people would be potential champions in the sport if they had all that time and money to spend on is this Cooper, the guy who really likes Austin Dillon? Is that who Cooper Watson is?
Yep.
Yeah, sorry, Austin Dillon is a bum. Anyways,
he's also a Michael McDowell fan too. Like, when we were at the Daytona 500, he was wearing like a Love's pit shirt.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's really unfortunate that we're having such youth movement because youth doesn't always mean they're better drivers than the people who were before them. Like, I don't think Ty Gibbs will do better than Kyle Busch did at the 18 this year. And I don't think that Gibbs will end up being better than Kyle Busch. I don't think so.
I honestly hope not.
I do too. I hope he. First off, he should be absolutely that penalty. I think they should have given him an Xfinity penalty. I am pretty livid over what happened at Texas. That was idiotic. That was so frustrating to watch.
I like Ty Gibbs, but it's just the shit he's doing. It's like putting it like a bad taste in my mouth, or he's like rubbing me off the wrong way.
What do you like about Ty Gibbs?
Like when he first came into the Xfinity Series last year, won it on his first career start, I was like, dude, this kid's like a legend. And like, I don't know, it's just him like driving that 54 Monster Energy paint scheme like Kyle Busch did in the Xfinity Series, like kind of like carrying his legacy pretty much in that series. And I'm like, you know what? I really like this kid. And I thought he was going to be an absolute superstar. But then with all this of him, taking Kyle's ride next year pretty much and like all that, everything that went down because of that, it's like, I get why. I mean, that's his grandson. He's going to help him out. I got no problem with that. But it's just, I just really hate that you had to like boot your number one driver who puts you on the map and like done a lot for you just to bring him in. I just don't like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't get behind him. I feel like that I've seen too much immaturity out of him to be. The immaturity doesn't stem from being 19. I mean, we've seen mature 19, 20-year-olds in NASCAR before. The immaturity stems from being raised in a world with limited consequences. For example, if I did what Gibbs did at Kansas, where he slammed into Allgaier, right? That's the right race. And I slammed into Allgaier and I caused $12,000 of damage to my car. I would have to work 40 hours a week for 15 weeks to make that up. Like at a realistic job, like to really be able to pay that off. Gibbs had that paid for. Gibbs doesn't bring any sponsors to the table. He doesn't have to sponsor Hunt. He's been unsponsored before. It does not matter what he does. He will be successful and have a career if he is placed in the best friggin' car in the field. There is nothing that he has to do except for drive. And that is such an easy thing. Like, people don't realize this. Driving is the easy part of being a race car driver. I mean, it's unbelievable to say out loud, but like the hard part is learning the maturity and learning the respect and learning the grind and learning that you have to really manage your resources, equipment, and lifestyle. And Ty doesn't have to do that. It's tough for me to get behind him. People have really been split on Noah Gragson this year. I have a lot of respect for Noah Gragson, and I think he's kind of what the sport needs.
Agreed. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I switched like from Ty Gibbs like a Ty Gibbs fandom on the way to like Noah Gragson. Like I'm hoping he wins a championship instead.
Like Noah Gragson is that guy. I mean, especially like for what it's worth, he needs to see a doctor. It's not normal to puke.
Yeah.
But the man continues to puke on himself and is willing to vomit on himself and sit in that vomit for hours in order to win races. Has the drive, has the commitment to do that. That is unbelievable. And by the way, the relationship he built with Johnny Morris and Bass Pro Shops, he did on his own. Like that was something he was able to figure out by himself. And that's like an important relationship for him in his career. But like, I mean, I got respect for the guy. There are a lot of people in the sport I have respect for. There are a lot of people I lack respect for. If you notice, there's kind of a common trend. The people that I have a lot of respect for are the people who keep the grind. The people I don't are the people who are kind of handed it.
Yeah. And I can definitely see that. What's funny is we've had I would say, I don't want to say both sides of the argument. We've had multiple sides of the argument.
Yeah.
On the show. Yeah. And it's always funny to hear their side and then hear another person's side, because it's two opposing views. Like, it's hot and cold. You know what I mean? And we're always just sitting in the middle, and we're like, yeah. It's weird. Well, for the last little bit of the show, we come up to 2 hours. I'm gonna let the comments take over. If you guys want to ask Steven a question, ask him now. You got anything else that you want to talk about?
I've covered everything. I'm about to
get ready to say.
Do
what? Dude, me too, man. That's what's on my mind.
It's sleep time, man. It's fall break now. I'm gonna sleep for like 1,000 years.
No, dude, I hear you there, man. I've been drained since last weekend. I had a wedding, and I have no energy, just none. Yeah. Comments are still trying to think.
Coming on, buddy. Sorry, everything got a little hectic. This concert that I'm working just got rained out, so I had to run back inside and start setting up everything or getting everything sealed back up. So
crazy.
It is crazy.
Is it raining bad down there?
Yeah, they're getting that hurricane rain right now.
Yeah, somehow in Bristol we're getting hit by a hurricane right now. So
we're getting poured on over here too.
Yeah, it's wild.
Yeah. All right. Well, if nobody's got any questions for me, I guess that's my cue to exit. Thanks, guys, for having me on. It was a good time.
We'll appreciate you coming on, man. Only thing that we want you to do is just say your name and say you've been listening to Left Turn Cult.
Yeah, and for what I will say that, but for what it's worth, after the next start that I make, I expect you to have me back on here. You know?
Oh, we're gonna have you back on before that. What are you talking about?
All right, guys. I'm Stephen Mallozzi, and you've been listening to Left Turn Cult.
Love it.
All right. Let's see you guys.